down the left field line. It is gone!
Live from the downtown Carmi studio, it's the Saturday Morning Sports Show. Live on 97.3 WRUL, 93.3 WROY, and online worldwide at WRUL.com. Good morning, sports fans, and welcome to the Saturday Morning Sports Show here on 97.3 WRUL and 93.3 WROY. Cole Carter and Chris Myers with you. Haley Winkleman across the hall getting us on the air after the Carmi-White County Bulldogs with a big 38-12 win last night over the Fairfield Mules on homecoming. We will get to that in just a minute. First, I want to thank all of our sponsors for Carmine football in the Saturday Morning Sports Show this year. Little Giant Grocery Outlet, Rice Motor Company, Hale Body Shop, First Mid Bank and Trust, Wabash Christian Therapy, Bush & Associates CPAs, People's National Bank, Hamilton Memorial Hospital District, Rush Appliance and Furniture, Citizens National Bank of Albion, Nancy J. Winters CPA, Cherry Street Automotive, Farrell Hospital, Taylor Right Care, Rorart Transport, Wabash General Hospital, and Invenergy. So again, last night the Bulldogs take down the Mules with a dominant second half, 38-12, the final score. The Bulldogs scored 30 unanswered points in that second half. To say wacky for the first half is an understatement. It was a strange first half. Really, it started off on the first Bulldog drive. They're getting ready to punt on a fourth down, and the lights go out. Definitely was not expected. About a 20-minute delay or so. We came back, but really, Chris, you got to give Fairfield credit. And talking to some of the Carmine coaches last night, Fairfield just came out fired up and ready to play, and Carmine honestly was a little flat.
Well, and it's like we had talked about the week before, and Coach Simon even said it. Our record doesn't matter when you got a game against a rival team, Fairfield. And I knew, I had the feeling, a lot of us did, that Fairfield was going to come in here swinging. Yeah. They weren't just going to show up and say, well, the Bulldogs are undefeated. They got a real good team this year. We beat them 10 years straight. We're just going to pass the torch to them. No, they were coming in motivated. They were kind of, like I said, the wounded animal. They were going to come out fighting and swinging, and they had a lot of pride on the line too. Mm-hmm. So it was a game. It was one of those, I felt like a trap game, because It was easy to kind of be lulled to sleep, to say, okay, it's our homecoming. We're at home. We're the favorite, so we're just, it's going to be easy, and it wasn't. And to credit that to Fairfield, they came out well prepared. They were really focusing on our running game with King in the first half, and they executed their game plan well. They just played a great first half of football. Just kind of caught us off guard, I felt. But thankfully, whatever happened at halftime worked the second half for the Bulldogs.
When talking to some of the coaches about halftime, I asked Mark Sinebeck, I said, what was halftime like? Because obviously you can go one of two ways. You can go in there and raise your voice a little bit, get the guys a little fired up, or just figure out what is going on X's and O's wise, and that's what they did. It wasn't more so the coaches upset about what was going on. They were trying to get to the bottom of why was Fairfield running it so well, and why couldn't they run against them. And Kurt Simon, being the guy he is, the football guy that he is, figured it out. A couple of X's and O's on the whiteboard, and the second half, it was a totally different team in the second half. Carmine outscores them 30-0 in the third and fourth quarter.
Yeah, and like he had told us last night, he said it wasn't a monster amount of X and O's. A lot of it was just Fairfield's line was just playing better than us. They were big up front. I mean, this was without question the biggest team we'd seen all year. They were 280, 300, 290. They had a tight end, defensive end. It was 6'5", 260. I mean, he looked like he was a grown man coming off that edge. And they just ran a power offense, that foot-to-foot, wedge type double wing lineman foot to foot splits that they're just coming at you like a steamroller. I think, a lot of it, they just cut us off guard. Our linemen were just having trouble defensively getting off blocks that first half. They were just kind of taking a page out of our book and kind of just grinding us down a little bit. But I think at halftime, Kurt, he said they just did a much better job getting off the blocks, not trying to engage those big 290 linemen for 3 or 4 seconds, getting off their blocks quick, shooting the gaps, maintaining their ground. The ends did a much better job staying at home. And that first series, for us to get that 3 and out, that was the game changer, because, like we'll cover, all the momentum in the world was with Fairfield at halftime. But credit the Bulldogs They just came out defensively, got that 3 and out, then started playing the type of football that we're accustomed to seeing. They got the ball on offense, had a monster drive, and I think that third quarter drive we had, there was a 3rd and long we converted, but there was a 4th and 5 with King, and he got about 4 or 5 and a quarter, 5.5 yards, and that changed the game. That drive, converting that 4th and 5, because we were 3rd and 3. And there were some other things that the Bulldogs, we were not accustomed to them seeing. We had a turnover, and we had a lot of penalties. And that penalty, the offsides penalty, was on 3rd and 3. That backed us up to 3rd and 8. We get 3 yards, we're 4th and 5. And to me, that conversion on 4th and 5 with King, that was the game. That saved the game for us.
You made a good point early in the first half that this is a Carmi team that prior to last night had not even trailed in a game and really had not even played in a close game score-wise throughout the first 4 weeks. And so that can be humbling when you go into a game where you think you're going to run over this team. It's homecoming. It's a festive week, and they come out, kind of slap you in the face. You're down 6-0. That and last night could have been, honestly, despite Carmine winning by however many points they did, that could have been a turning point and a really big moment in the season where these guys stopped and said, okay, more of a humbling moment, and obviously it paid off because in the second half they took care of business.
Yeah, this is one of those I call trap games, because Fairfield, once again, was a team that wasn't going to come in here and lay down. They had a lot of pride on the line, and they're playing Carmine. That they're just as riled up to play us as we are them. So they had nothing to lose. This is a team lost their best running back week 1, so they do have some injuries, but still a lot of pride on the line for them too. And they would have loved nothing more than to come in here and play the role of spoiler for us. And that first half, they definitely played like it. But going back to what you just said about us getting hit in the mouth that first half, it may have been the best thing that could have happened to us, because let's be honest, this team has not faced any adversity all year. They haven't. Close. It's just everything's been a walk in the park. So for this to happen and for them to prove, okay, this is the first time we've had our backs against the wall in a long time, and for this team to come out the second half and kind of, all right, get the bully off of you, push them back, get it off the wall, and just start punching back, I think that was, in a weird way, it's one of the best things that could have happened to us, because now going forward, obviously this coming Friday, it shouldn't be much of a challenge for the Bulldogs. Edwards County, a program that's struggling at the moment. The week after, El Dorado, again, not looking too far ahead, another program that's kind of struggling a little bit. But it's kind of setting up a mentality for week 8 when we go to Johnson City, barring any unforeseen circumstances of a slip-up or a loss for them. Two potentially 7-0 teams meeting. It's starting to look like that's a showdown, and we're going to be on the road there in week 8. So I
never really played well there either.
And they've had our number the past couple of years. Yep. Johnson City, a big physical team, and I think in a way it was kind of good that we had a test, because if things had been status quo, going into that game in a couple of weeks against Johnson City, we're not what I'd call totally battle tested. But this last night, coming out from the halftime with their down 12-8, getting that 3 and out, converting that tough 4th and 5, that proved these kids got guts. They can dig deep when they need to in pressure situations and rise to the occasion.
Scoring summary from last night: after the delay and the Carmi punt, Fairfield drove about 81 yards and took up about 8 minutes to clock to score their first touchdown of the night, a 4-yard run by Luke Sork. They missed the 2-point play, so it was 6-0 Fairfield after one quarter of play. Then both teams traded punts, and then Carmi would finally find the end zone after their first successful long drive of the night, capped it off with a 4-yard run by Draxon Odd. Drax would also run the 2-point play to put Carmi in front 8-6 at the 4:14 mark there in the second quarter. And a couple of plays later, Fairfield answers. Eric Rogers with a 67-yard quarterback keeper. He spun off a couple of guys, broke a couple of tackles, and really showed his athletic ability to give Fairfield the momentum again and the lead again. Right before halftime, Carmi tried something before the end of the first half and didn't get anything going. So it was 12-8 Yeah, 12-8 Fairfield at the break. And Fairfield got the ball to start the third quarter. And we said during the break, Chris, last night, that those first couple of minutes, that first Carmine defensive possession and that first offensive possession of that third quarter was going to be big. Carmine got the 3 and out, drove right down the field. Warren Legg snuck it in from 1 yard out to put the Bulldogs back in front.
Yeah, and at that moment they answered the bell, and that's when you knew how they responded. The first defensive series with 3 and out, and then playing Bulldog football, getting that slow, methodical drive to answer. You got the sense of relief. Okay, these kids are waking up now, and again, how they responded to that was incredible, because that was the difference in the game. Had Fairfield gotten that first possession and got a drive like they did to open the game, it was going to be a very, very tough road to say the least.
Put you down possibly 28, 18-8, something like that.
Yeah, because 2-minute offense, quick, that's not our style. Yeah. So if you're that type of team, you get down a couple scores, it definitely works against you. So you're absolutely right, Cole. The Bulldogs responded exactly how they had to in the second half.
Carmine would force another Fairfield punt, and then they just needed one play. There were only one play possession of the night. Isaac King went 47 yards to the end zone with 3:28 left to go in that third quarter. And then Fairfield would cough the football up. They would try to run a quarterback a speed option. They wouldn't hand it off cleanly. The Bulldogs would recover. They would cap that off with a Warren Legg quarterback sneak once again. Then in the fourth quarter, Odd got his second touchdown of the night, this time from 6 yards out, and that was the nail in the coffin. Again, the Bulldogs outscore Fairfield 30-0 there in the second half. And Chris, really, if you are Fairfield has by far had the toughest schedule of anybody in the conference these first 5 weeks. They've really played the 4 toughest teams in the conference. They've played Carmi, of course. They've played Johnson City. They've played Flora, who was undefeated until a couple of weeks ago, and Cesar as well. So they've seen really the big dogs in the conference. Now it's going to ease out, and they, if they win the games they're supposed to win, they should still find themselves in the playoffs. But if you're Fairfield, you've got to be a little bit encouraged by how things went there in that first half, because they've scared Carmine more than anybody has this year, and really played a very good first half.
Yeah, you do. Again, that first half was all Fairfield. If you look at that, if you're watching the game, they physically dominated us. Both sides of the football. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. They were controlling the line of scrimmage, and we had no answer. And going in at halftime, I think we were everyone at the Carmine said we're a little bit spooked. It was like, wow. No one expected that. I mean, I expected Fairfield to play hard, and I said, it could be maybe a 1-score or not, probably a 2-score game. I felt in Carmine's favor, but for Fairfield to do what they did that first half, you had to have some concern if you were a Bulldog fan, player, or coach. But what Fairfield just has to do, they just have to be able to do that for 4 quarters. Mm-hmm. You can't do it for 2 against a good team and expect to win. You got to be able to do that all 4 quarters. And, like you said, they've kind of ran their gauntlet to this point in the season. Their schedule will ease out from here on out. And if they can, just maintain the drives that they did, like the first half, play the way they did that first half, they should have a nice run to finish their season, find themselves back in the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. Stats from last night, thanks to Toby Brown and his crew, and this really stood out to me. First downs from last night, Carmi had 20, Fairfield with just 9 first downs, and you got to think, if you go back to think about the second half, Fairfield maybe only had 2 or 3 in that entire second half. It had a great first half, but really only a couple of first downs there in the third and fourth quarter that really showed how much Carmine's defense stepped it up. In the rushing department, Fairfield had 32 carries for 176 yards. The Bulldogs, 50 carries for 378 yards on the ground. Carmine just passed it twice. Warren Legg was 1 for 2. Fairfield, Eric Rogers 2 for 6 through the air. 36 yards passing for Fairfield, just 24 for Warren Legg. 402 total yards of offense for Carmi, 212 for Fairfield. Both teams lost a fumble. The Mules turned it over twice. They also had an interception. Carmi just coughed it up one time. Bulldogs 4 of 9 on third down. They were 1 for 1 on fourth down. And also a big stat, Fairfield 1 for 6 on third down. There was many times, especially in that second half, that the Carmi defense got off the field, forcing Fairfield to punt.
Yeah, and the power inside power tosses that were just going so well for Fairfield in that first half, where they were just, it was like a convoy coming around every time they ran that sweep that the Bulldogs just didn't seem to have the answer for. But the second half, it was just a different story. They tried to run that very same play that they were having success with in the first half. First play of the second half, they run that, and there were at least 2 Bulldog defensive linemen in the backfield immediately, and our defensive end and corner were right there to meet. It was just a totally different tone set by the defense that first play of the second half, and I think from that point on, once we forced Fairfield out of their comfort zone, once their power run game shut down, they were forced to go to more of their spread look. And we also did something we didn't do in the first half. When they got in that spread look the first half, we found out the hard way that if you let Rogers outside you, he can score. And our contain was much, much better the second half. And I think once we got Fairfield out of their rhythm, they were just kind of at a loss what to do, especially offensively.
Individual stats for Carmine last night. Listen to this. Isaac King, 28 carries, 253 rushing yards with 1 touchdown. I'll have to go. That's got to be up in his career high range. I'll have to go back and check. But I saw it last night. Couldn't believe it. 253 rushing yards for Isaac King last night.
253, and then what do you say? What do you say?
There's
to that?
not much you can.
You know, your starting senior All-State returning tailback does what he does, and 253 yards. You're happy if you get that combined.
Yeah.
If most football, you're happy if you have 3 backs who total that combined. But for one kid to get that, and then what's more amazing, what did Odd have? Odd was
19 for 123 and 2 scores.
You have your 1-2 punch, one 253 yards, the other 100 and whatever yards. I mean, a 100-yard night for most running backs is a great night, but a 200 and a 100 for your starting backfield, I mean, yeah, when that happens, my old cliche, you can rest assured you're probably going to win games.
Yeah, but obviously those two wouldn't be able to do that if it wasn't for the guys up front.
Exactly.
Chase Pringle, Bryson Moore, Gavin Payton, Austin Owen, and Nelson Ryder. Those guys are doing a great job all season long, opening up holes. Yeah, and Andrew Dotson also. He only had 1 carry last night, but Andrew's that guy. He, obviously the O line is leading the opening up things, but the fullbacks and Straxton, or if it's Isaac or Andrew, they're blocking in front as well, trying to open things up for whoever's got the football.
Absolutely, and Andrew made a huge play defensively. That pick we got in the second half, he came off the edge and forced an errant throw by Rogers, and that allowed Gomat to get that pick, I believe, is in the third or fourth quarter, and kind of really start the route for the Bulldogs.
So again, final score from last night: Bulldogs win it 38-12. And, a great fun fact or a great moment about that win, that it was win number 150 for head coach Kurt Simon in his career at Carmi-White County High School. Here's what he had to say after the big win.
The man of the hour, head coach Kurt Simon, 150 career wins for the Maroon and White. Coach, we'll just start with the game itself. A wacky first half. Lights go out. It's obvious. It's like a lightning delay. It's hard to prepare your guys for that. Yeah. But it took them a while. But there in that third quarter, they turned it on and really showed who they are.
Well, I tell you, it was such a credit to the kids, their resiliency coming out in the second half. Going in, we really got hit in the mouth. Fairfield did a great job early in the game, pushing us around a little bit, and so we had not been in that scenario yet, which is a great scenario to be in. It shows you what kind of character you got. Okay, what do you do here? Do we come out? And the kids just came out and flat played in the second half. We really didn't. There really wasn't a lot of adjustments schematically. We just were missing blocks. And they were doing a great job of stunting and moving and things like that, so it created some problems. But we just showed them on the board. We got to still get that block, and we got a hat for a hat. And if we do it, we got these 2 guys in the backfield that are eventually gonna get there. So that's just what it was. I mean, that's where it really just a credit to the players. They just flat came out and played better in the second half.
Yeah, and we had talked about that last week. We knew, and you said it too, records go out the window in games like this, especially against Fairfield.
Yeah.
That team, Fairfield's not going to come in here tonight and just say, hey, we're going to give up our 10-year streak we're laying down for Carmi. So we kind of echoed what you said. We said, in a strange way, this might have been the best thing for your team at this point in the year. A little bit of a wake-up call. Okay, first time you've been taken off the field on a first drive. First
Right,
time you've
right.
turned the ball over,
Right.
you know. First time that someone's took a drive and just methodically just, you know, it's like, okay, we got hit in the mouth, now we're awake, now we've been
that
through
just
this,
shows
and it's your team.
Yeah, that shows you the character of the senior leadership that we have, that we've talked about all year, and I'm sure we will continue to talk about. But, they just keep plugging away at it. We call it keep hammering away at it. We swing the hammers down to practice all the time, and that's kind of our our theme is when it doesn't look good and things are down, just keep hammering away at it. Don't quit. So,
I think from the schematic part, when you were able to finally stop their base run out of the double wing formation, the wedge, when you force them out of their comfort zone from running the football, I think that's when your team was able to kind of flip the script and turn the tables. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, well, it's no different than when you go. I mean, we're coming off playing. I know Cesar was a pretty good team or whatever, but the other teams were not that great this year at that time or whatever. So, I mean, you get into a game like this, and obviously, I mean, Fairfield's beat us 9 years in a row. It's not like, they shouldn't have confidence enough that they think that they can come in here and beat us. So, but so you're gonna get that. It's the same thing when you go to the second round of the playoffs. When you hit some team that you haven't seen before and they're just a lot more physical, but it does just take some time to get used to it, so to speak, and this guy is a little heavier than me and he's coming at me, so I gotta dig my cleats in the ground and I gotta work a little harder, and I think that's basically what happened. We just kept playing hard and we just kept talking to them all week about we got to play forward against these guys, especially when you're in the double wing. I mean, you're going to get cut. You're going to fall on the ground. Someone's going to be on. You got to just get up and keep going and going and going. And I think eventually we just wore them down.
We knew it was going to be a battle up front, and that was probably the biggest defensive line you guys have faced all year. And they stopped the run early. They penetrated up front. But as the game got on, your front five on the offensive side just continued. And there in the second half, you could have drove a truck through one of the holes that Isaac ran through in one of those big plays. And it just shows. You talk about the keep hammering in all four quarters. And when the fourth quarter came around, it was the maroon and white that was standing strong.
Yes, it was. And you can't do things like that without good players. I mean, you got Isaac and Drax in the backfield. These two kids are special. And they're a special talent. They're to go along with how good of people they are. And then we got good kids up front and kids that are learning. That's a great learning experience for us, and we'll be able to watch this film and learn a lot from this film. And you just got to get better. I mean, we're not done. There's still a lot of football to play, and we're looking forward to it. We got out of here without any injuries. I think Drax kind of twisted his ankle there at the end or whatever, but he's fine. So it's a matter of just staying healthy and keep working.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. This team was different than what you faced. The teams we faced the past few weeks have been more perimeter teams, spread the ball out, kind of sideline to sideline. This was 280, 290, 300, just kind of coming at you. And I think you're right. It takes a minute to adjust. And once your team did that, they did it well. And you could just feel the momentum shift. But again, it's such a testimony to your kids, their heart and their will. I mean, most teams shell-shocked like that at half, they're panicking. Not your kids.
No.
I mean, they came out that second half and said, okay, this is our field. We're going to get this done. And that first drive, that 3 and out, that set the tone for everything, in my opinion, the way you guys played that first drive. So.
Absolutely. And it's just a matter, we always preach about outworking people. I mean, if there's one thing you can do, you can outwork people. So no one's going to work harder than we are. So we do as much as we can and going into the season, and we talk about, but this is where it shows right here in the second half of games that you're behind the 8 ball, so to speak, or whatever, and you just keep fighting. And like I said, at halftime, there wasn't a lot of schematic adjustments that we made. It was more or less, guys, we just have to get a hat and stand. And that's a credit to Fairfield. I mean, they whipped us several times in the first half where we weren't used to getting whipped like that. But in the second half, the same 2 people, it flip-flopped. And that's again, big word, resiliency or whatever, but you can use whatever you want to use. We just outworked them, just keep your nose up and outwork them.
We don't want to keep you long. We know Jake and Luke and Stacy are down there to celebrate, but on that note, career win number 150 for the Maroon and White. I'm not sure. We kind of kept it a secret all week from you. I think we did a pretty good job on that. But what does that mean? The big 150 for you in the Maroon and White.
Anybody that knows me knows that I don't keep track of all that stuff. I will someday when I'm done. I've always preached not individualism, and I don't know how many yards he's got and this, that, and the other. It's the same way with us. I've just been very blessed to be here, to get to a place where you can work with other coaches, like in the school system, and no one's tugging on kids to go one way or another. I have had great assistants in the past, obviously, Chris, you being one of them. The guys that have worked with me, and that whatever culture I was trying to create, they joined right in. Of course, my best friend, Coach Haley, who passed away a few years ago. I've just been blessed with a lot of good people around me, and a football program it's a lot of people. It's not one person doing whatever. And I've just been blessed with a lot of great people, and obviously a lot of great kids. I think I said that last week or just somewhere talking to somebody just about how you guys have always been easy to coach, easy to motivate. I mean, that's a fun group to be around. When you can pat you on the back, or you can get in your grill, or we always come back and love on them or whatever, but you can coach them any way you want, and that's the way our kids have always been. And that's a credit to the parents around here, and the way we bring kids up in the community, and it's been special. It's been special. We got a lot of way to go yet. So it's a milestone, I guess, or whatever, but we'll celebrate it a little bit and then move on and get ready for next week.
Well, I'm not sure a thank you or congratulations would be appropriate for what you've done to this program the past 20-some-odd years, really changing it from when you came here in 97. And, again, congratulations, Coach, on the win and number 150.
Been blessed, and give all the glory to God.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you, Coach. Congratulations.
So Kurt Simon, 150 wins for Carmi-White County. He got here in 1997, and Kurt, there's no question, he completely revitalized football in Carmi, Illinois.
That, to say the least, that's what he did. I kind of have to correct myself. I think after our 1975 season, which we went undefeated, and the playoffs were a lot different then, our first round opponent, for those who may not know this, was a team called East St. Louis Lincoln, which is no longer in existence. But to give you an idea of how it was not a regional pairing at that time, and that team had, if history is correct, had a couple players made to the NFL. So. But anyway, I think in '76 we were 6-3. In 1981 we were 5-4, and in 1984 we were 5-4. That was it for winning seasons until he came.
And back then, 5-4 didn't get you in the playoffs either.
No, 5-4. He was still at a time you're winning your conference, or a minimum 6-3 was getting you in. So from that time, you count them from 1975, 1, 2, 3 winning seasons in 20 years. And when he came in 1997, like most programs, like start new, he took his lumps. The first year we were 2-7. The following year in '98 we were 4-5, and then in 1999 we had our breakthrough and we made the playoffs. And that was Bart King, Isaac King's dad, was on that team. And ever since then we haven't looked back. What he's done for this program in terms of building it into a consistent winner, turning the mindset of not only the players, not the school, but the community around, and making us a town that really looks forward to football and being competitive in the sport of football. He's done that. But again, it's what he was able to do to accomplish, to get the kids he has year in and year out to buy into what he's doing. Because having coached with him for a few seasons, I'm just telling you, his practices starting out are not easy.
No.
You've been there, you've done it. He has those kids in there on Saturday mornings after football. If you've played it, the next morning after you wake up, getting up and wanting to go do things is not on your mind. You're wanting to rest. But Saturday mornings, those kids are in there, either in the weight room and then going to watch film every Saturday. Not a lot of other programs do that. It's those tough things that he makes his kids do. But when they commit to it and they buy into it, that's the results. You build winners that way, and he's done that. And he's been dedicated to this for 25, 26 seasons now. And if you can have a coach stay with your program that long. Again, you talk about his X and O knowledge is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
I've many times over the years, when I was doing junior pro, I could always call him, "Hey, coach, you got a few minutes? Can I stop by?" Go into his office, and he would do chalk talk with me. I'd say, "Okay, this is what I'm looking at. What do you think?" And he would immediately, "All right, let's take a look at this." The man knows football. He knows how to get the best out of his kids, and our community has been blessed to have him here these past 26 years.
And just an incredibly selfless guy. I knew as soon as we mentioned 150 last night, he was going to have no idea. And that's just the kind of coach that he is. He's not worried about what he's done as a coach and his glory and how many games he's won, because he's won a lot of them, folks. This guy's going to be a Hall of Famer when it's said and done. But the only thing he's worried about is these kids winning football games. He's done a pretty darn good job at that.
He's done a very darn good job at that. And more importantly, he's worried about just making them better young men, which is the goal of any coach, educator, administrator. Just making better kids, making their lives better at the end of the day.
Absolutely. So, again, congratulations to head coach Kurt Simon. Big Bulldog win in general. First one over Fairfield in 10 years, but Kurt Simon, 150 career wins for the Bulldogs, and he actually picked up win 100 back in 2012, last time Carmi defeated Fairfield. So, pretty cool stat there. Other scores from around the conference in the area last night. Vienna Goreville snaps their 35-game losing streak to defeat Edwards County 20-7. Edwards County also scored their first touchdown of the year last night. Eagles win at 20-7. Johnson City all over Flora from the get-go, 43-15. The final scores for the Indians and the Bulldogs, the lone undefeated teams in the conference. Cesar takes down CZR 50-6. And then later on today, El Dorado will host Hamilton County for their homecoming. That could be an interesting game. Hamilton County, for you Bulldog fans that have been paying attention, they've really stepped things up since Carmine played them week one. They played a tight one with Johnson City last week. They picked up a couple of wins prior to that. So Hamilton County, they might be able to find themselves a potential 5-4 spot when it's said and done, but a big game today at El Dorado. Little Illini games from last night. Mount Carmel defeats Olney 64-28. Casey Westfield over Lawrenceville 12-6. Robinson over Newton 27-14. Paris and Marshall will play later on today. In the River, Carterville defeats Anna Jonesboro 42-7. DuQuoin over Pinckneyville 50-14. Harrisburg shuts out Massac 42-0. And Murfreesboro takes down Heron 36-6. That's all of the nearby scores in Southern Illinois from last night. And again, a couple of games going on later on this afternoon. Do want to let fans know that we will be in Edwards County on Friday night, but we are not going to bring our video crew for that game. Carmi at Edwards County Friday night. If any of you fans have ever been to Edwards County, and nothing on Albion by any means, but it's a smaller press box, and of course to do our video crew takes about 4 of us. So just me and Chris will have the radio broadcast for you, like the good old days, I guess you could say, of just simple 97.3. But no video broadcast next week. We'll be back at it with the full crew the following week at home against El Dorado, and of course that big game coming up against Johnson City there in Week 8. But once again, no video crew next week in the game at Edwards County. We'll remind you guys throughout the week goes on. You'll still be able to listen to it, though, as the Bulldogs look to go to 6-0. They're 5-0 now for the first time since 2011. We got some spots to play. We'll take our first commercial break of the day right here on the Saturday Morning Sports Show on 97.3 WRUL and 93.3 WROY. This is the Saturday Morning Sports Show on 97.3 WRUL and 93.3 WROI. Also want to let fans know there will be no Saturday Morning Sports Show next weekend. I will be on the road heading out east to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so we will not have a show next Saturday, but we'll be back on Corn Day morning. That'd be October 8th, I believe. We'll be back then. So no show next Saturday.
Are you going to be watching a certain football team out there maybe?
After the way they played Thursday, I'm not sure if I want to answer that.
Okay.
But yes, I will.
I was just guessing, a random wild guess that you might be watching the Steelers.
Yeah.
So,
okay. Heading out to Pittsburgh to watch the Steelers play next weekend. Should be a fun time. I love going out there. But, we got to leave around 4 or 5 a.m. So we could try to do the show from the car. Maybe I can call in and let you...
me at the controls, it would be pretty brutal.
No, I'm just kidding. So no show next weekend. Apologize for that, but we'll be back on the 8th. Carmi scores from earlier this week. Back on Monday, the boys and girls golf teams hosted Harrisburg. Boys team fell 162 to 180, and the girls fell 198 to 209. The volleyball team, though, did defeat Christopher in 2 sets on Monday, 25-16 and 25-18. They're having a fantastic season. The JV football team took down Christopher 40-6. All of that on Monday. Then on Tuesday, volleyball again with a win, this time over El Dorado in 3 sets, 25-11, 19-25, and 25-21. The Lady Bulldogs are 11-5 now on the season. They were off the rest of the week. They will go to Fairfield, I believe, on Tuesday. Girls tennis team hosted Fairfield on Tuesday for Senior Day. They honored their 2 lone seniors, Sophia Smith and Grayson Rice, and they also got the win on Tuesday, 8-1. The 2 seniors won their doubles match, and Smith also won her singles match there on Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, the girls golf team traveled to West Frankfort for the Black Diamond Conference Tournament. Lady Bulldogs finished in 6th place with a score of 416. Ava Sheaver finished 12th overall with a score of 97. And the boys did the same thing on Thursday at the Black Diamond Conference Tournament. They finished also in 6th place with a team score of 386. Maxon O'Daniel shot a 92. Connor Newell a 94. Gabe Wickelman a 97. Zach Roark 103. Trevor Mason a 108. And Aiden Willis a 112 there on Thursday. Also on Thursday, junior high baseball and softball teams had their seasons come to an end in the first round of regionals. Softball fell to Mount Carmel 15-0, and baseball fell to Olney 13-0. A couple of sporting events going on in town today if you want to kill some time. I know junior pro football, they're playing here in about 20 minutes up at the high school. I believe it's going to be the 7th and 8th grade game is first, then the 5th and 6th. And they're doing it a little bit differently. Spud texted me yesterday, but that's going on this morning over at the high school, and also here in about 20 minutes up at Bradshaw Park, regional championship for both baseball and softball. I know on the baseball side it's Flora and Olney. Not sure who's playing over on the softball field, but if you're looking for something to do, want to watch some sports this morning, get on out and see some things going on here in town. The upcoming sports schedule for this coming week: on Monday, the boys and girls golf teams will travel to Mount Carmel. On Tuesday, they'll travel to Hamilton County. Volleyball will travel to Fairfield, and girls tennis will host Heron. Then on Thursday, cross country is at Robinson. Volleyball is at Flora. Then, of course, next Friday, the Bulldog football team will travel to Edwards County. So that's your sports recap from this past week and the upcoming schedule. We'll take our final break of the morning. When we come back, we'll have our national sports segment right here on the Saturday Morning Sports Show. It's a Saturday Morning Sports Show here on 97.3 WRUL and 93.3 WROY. Now time for our national sports segment here on the show, and we'll start off by, how about Albert Pujols last night? He has been chasing 700 all season long. Wasn't sure when he was going to get to it. Last night he hit number 699 and 700. So congratulations to Albert Pujols. I say that like he's listening, but Albert Pujols, 700 career home runs, and Cardinal fans have been a witness to history without a doubt the past 20-some-odd years. But Cardinals also got a big win against the Dodgers last night, and they had been struggling offensively this week, but obviously it's a long season, and playoffs are right around the corner. Really, playoff baseball, I think next week is the final week of the regular season for baseball, and the postseason starts up. It's always a fun time. Football gets going. Playoff baseball right around the corner. It's always fun to watch.
And how's that changing? Remind me, you're more of a baseball junkie than me. How is the playoff system changing this year? What are they doing different? Aren't they offering a bye round?
So there's 3 wild card teams now. So
instead of 2.
Okay. Instead of 2. Then in the past there was just 1, but then there was 2. They play each other. Now there's 3, and everybody gets in, and there is 1 team that gets a bye. So it's funky, but it gives obviously more teams a chance to get in. But yeah, that's starting. I believe next weekend is when playoff baseball gets underway. How about our terrible 10 picks from last week? Chris, not as successful as he's had been, coming off of a 10-0 and then a 9-1 week. Chris went 6-4 last week. I gained some ground. I went 7-3. The 2 games we both missed. We both had the Ravens beating the Dolphins. We both had the Raiders beating the Cardinals. Both teams lost in heartbreaking fashion.
And they both had big leads.
That too.
The Raiders were up, I think, 20 nothing,
yeah.
And then the Ravens were up 28-7, something like that at one point. I was like, so talk about getting hit in the mouth.
NFL's been pretty pretty crazy the first couple of weeks. A lot of great games. I know your Niners, man, took a hard turn last week. Trey Lance probably done for the year, and back to good old Jimmy G.
Well, I tell you, it worked out that they were able to keep Jimmy G because the plan was to trade him. He was going to be gone. Trey Lance was the guy. NFL, unfortunately, injuries are just a part of things, and the reason they never were able to trade him is because Garoppolo had a shoulder injury, and he decided to have surgery, and no team wanted him. They found out Cleveland was real close, but they didn't take him for the trade deadline, so it became a blessing in disguise for the Niners. So we'll see how it goes.
Still a long season, only week 3 this coming Sunday. We won't talk about my Steelers. They didn't play too hot the other night. So, our terrible 10 picks for this week: 3 college games, 7 NFL games. Chris starting out with Clemson, number 5, at number 21, Wake Forest.
I'm going to go ahead and go with Clemson, even though they haven't been completely dominant like you'd expect. I think they'll go ahead and take that one.
Yeah, Wake Forest is one of those kind of odd teams that you rarely see in the top 25. But, Clemson, they're always going to be a top 10 football team. I'm picking them here. Now, this game should be a good one. Number 20, Florida, at number 11, Tennessee. Luke Simmons, before he texts me, don't worry, I'm taking Florida here.
I'm going to, boy, that is interesting. I have to think for a second. The kid playing quarterback for Florida was considered, and going to be in Heisman talks there at the beginning of the year, but stumbled a little bit against Kentucky. Kentucky's got a really good defense, though. But I'm going to go ahead and play the home team here. I'm going to go ahead and go with Tennessee. I think Josh Heupel's getting the Big Orange kind of back to where they're being respected and talked about a little bit.
Number 10, Arkansas, at 23, Texas A&M. I'm going with the Razorbacks here.
Another tough one. Jimbo kind of saved his skin last week, beating Miami. Arkansas had a nail biter. It was Missouri State.
Yes.
Formerly Southwest Missouri State, but Bobby Petrino was the coach, and he was formerly at Arkansas. So he kind of, went to his lab and drew up some stuff there. So it may have been a fluke, may have just been one of those nights. But with that said, my rambling answer, I'm going to go ahead and pick A&M to pull the upset here.
Okay. And A&M is the home team. It's always
Jimbo
a tough place
needs
to
a
play.
win. He needs a signature win.
Now on to the NFL games. These are all tomorrow, I do believe. And a couple of good ones of that. The Buffalo Bills at the Miami Dolphins, 2 of the hottest teams in the first couple of weeks. I would, if it's normally, and the Buffalo Bills have been really hot, and normally I always pick the Dolphins at home. It's a tough place to play with the heat and everything, but man, the Bills, they look like the best team in the NFL. I'm going with the Buffalo Bills.
I'm going to agree with you there, and the reason they're so much better this year, in my opinion, of course, Josh Allen is playing out of his mind. A lot of great receivers, but Von Miller on that defense has been the difference. They finally got a edge rusher reminiscent of the old days of Bruce Smith, so I'm going to go ahead and go with the Bills too.
Second game for tomorrow, the Saints at the Panthers. Chris, who do you got?
Another tough one. Panthers have been struggling. The Saints didn't do a whole lot against the Bucs offensively. That's kind of a roll the dice one. I'm going to go ahead and say the Panthers pull that one out and get off their winless streak.
I'm going to say the Saints win this. I'm going to even go out even further and say the Panthers fire their head coach after this game tomorrow. He's got the hottest chair in the NFL, and the Panthers have a decent roster, and I think it's a winnable game tomorrow. But I'm going to go with the Saints, and I think Matt Rule says seize the door before too long.
Could be.
Also a game up in Minnesota tomorrow. Lions at the Vikings. Vikings didn't look great last week. Lions got a big win. I'm going to go with Minnesota here, though.
Lions are very interesting because they did lose a tough one in week 1, but then they got a solid win last week. The Vikings kind of other way around. Looked great opening week and kind of got spanked the other night by the Eagles, but it looks like the Eagles are going to be pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and stay with the home team. I'm going to pick the Vikings as well.
Good pick there. Final couple of games. Got the Rams at the Cardinals. We'll fly through these. I will go with I guess I'll go with the Rams here. Cardinals looked a little bit better last week, but Rams are still one of the top teams in the NFC. I'll go Rams.
They just had to wake up a little bit, and they played a good team in Buffalo to open the year. I'm going to go ahead and go with the Rams too.
Packers at the Buccaneers. This game just does not intrigue me whatsoever.
Rodgers and Brady.
Two teams that are, I know it's Rodgers and Brady, but two teams that have just been so far this year. I need Brady to do well for my fantasy team, so I'm going Buccaneers here.
Same here. It's the old. Chris Berman used to call that when Tampa Bay and Green Bay played the Battle of the Bay of Pigs.
Bay of Pigs. There you go.
So I'll stay status quo. Go home team. Bucks.
Tomorrow night, I do believe, is when this game is. But the Cowboys at the Giants. Giants are 2-0. Cowboys, no Dak Prescott.
Giants.
I'm thinking Giants. I'm leaning towards the Giants.
I'm just saying it. I'm sorry. I'll just admit it. I can't root for the Cowboys. I know I'm gonna have a lot of people hate me for saying it. So, but yeah, and to your point, the Giants are playing much better this year. Cowboys,
new head coach.
Although the Cowboys did look good, but
did,
the Bengals are kind of they're an enigma right now. But I'll go ahead and go with the Giants.
Final game tomorrow: Battle of the Birds. Falcons at the Seahawks. Falcons have lost a couple of close games to start the year. I think I'm going to go with. It's a tough place to play. Give me Seattle. That's a tough place to play.
Yeah, flying all the way across
If it was
the
a home
country,
game, I would say Atlanta, but it's tough to play in Seattle.
Neither one of those teams are going to be great this year. It's kind of but I'll go ahead and stay with Seattle on that one too.
All right, there's our terrible 10 picks for this coming week. Games today and tomorrow. Reminder for fans, there will be no sports show next Saturday morning. I'll be about 8 hours away in Pennsylvania. We'll be back on October 8th, the morning of Corn Day. We'll break down everything going on that day. Should be a fun weekend in Carmi. Again, no video stream this Friday night in Albion. It'll be just me and Chris on the radio side for the Bulldogs at Edwards County. So, Chris, an exciting win last night. Really a great night in general. It's homecoming weekend, always fun. And Kurt Simon, the big 150. A very memorable night last night and weekend all in all.
Yeah, it was just a fantastic week. And got to watch the homecoming parade. And what I thought was cool about that part is where all they went by. The route went by all the schools, went by the nursing home. A lot of the residents there got to go outside and watch the parade. It was just a cool thing, a cool, heartwarming thing to see all the maroon and white, all the kids out and just having a great time. Huge crowd last night. Big win by the Bulldogs. Come from behind win. Who'd we? Homecoming?
Lucy Stubblefield, homecoming queen. Lucy Stubblefield,
homecoming queen, and just a great night. So it was just great to see all the kids in every aspect just have a great week, have fun, and just always a fun time for the community.
Absolutely. So that's going to wrap things up for us this morning. A big thanks to Haley Winkleman across the hall getting us on the air. For Chris Myers, I'm Cole Carter. Have a great weekend, Bulldog fans.